another one of these 15 for your futures. This one, we're going to focus on how to conquer interviews, networking, and dating in 90 seconds. We're really excited about this topic. It's something we talk about a lot and teach a lot in our programs. For those of you who weren't with us last time, we'll give a quick intro about who we are and how we got here. There's a more detailed one on the last one if you want to go back and watch that. But for us, Joseph and I are brothers, so we've known each other a very long time. We left banking and consulting jobs in 2015 to start this company full time. And what we do is help students succeed in the real world through our online courses. The reason we started this was because we were frustrated growing up that entrepreneurship, which we got exposed to and became an instant passion of ours, something that we were really excited to explore, wasn't supported by traditional school. We were encouraged to go on the traditional path because that was safer. Go to college, get that degree. Then maybe you can, after you get that safe job, you can move out of mom and dad's basement, figure out, your dream job or take a risk and start your own company. So we did that and we're successful banking and consulting, like I said, and we were just super empty inside because we realized that although we had achieved everyone else's definition of success for us, that wasn't what we ultimately wanted to do. We knew that entrepreneurship was something that we just had to explore and we wanted to incorporate into our lives. And so what we wanted to do was create the programs and the structure and the courses that we wish we would have had growing up so students could avoid our path and not have to go through the motions, end up doing something they hated, or even worse, which is happening to a lot of students because of traditional education, getting left behind because maybe they don't perform well in a traditional classroom or know how to ace an SAT test that doesn't actually test anything that you need in the real world. And so what we did was create as many courses and continue to do is create as many courses as we can through awesome partners like Utmost U and other partners around the country. We put on webinars and trainings, anything we can do to help students live their second to none life, whatever that is for them. And that's the name of our company, 220. So that's just a little bit about our story and why we're here. Now diving back into what we're talking about today. We are going to go through this outline. And again, it's 15 minutes, so we're going to go pretty quick, but we have time at the end. If you have any questions, you can unmute yourself or put them in the chat, and we'll definitely make time as much as we need to get everyone's questions answered. So for today's focus, and Joseph, you can pull up those polls, that'd be awesome. This question, tell me about yourself. Super important, very critical. Would love for you to answer the poll on your screen. When do you get asked this question? Tell me about yourself. So most of us can agree if you've ever been in an interview, you've probably heard this question, but I would just love to see just general poll from the room. When else you get asked this question, or if you do. All right, 8 of 9. So we'll keep going, but if that 9th person wants to click in, definitely do it. So they're all correct. You actually get asked this question, maybe not in the exact same words, but you get asked this question all the time. Interviews, yes, of course. Networking, maybe a little less obvious, but definitely. Applications for scholarships, jobs, anything, definitely. Dating, absolutely. When you're just feeling somebody out, right? You don't know. Maybe they don't say, hey, so tell me about yourself, but you are answering this question in one form or another to try and figure out if you're a good fit for that person. So you get asked this question all the time. For the second poll, I see most of you have started to answer, but if you haven't yet, just let us know. Tell me about yourself. General consensus, and I believe it is a pretty tough question. So I would love to hear your answer on what you think makes it so hard based on the options we have for you in that poll. So waiting on a couple more.
What was the question?
So the poll number 2 is what makes tell me about yourself a hard question to answer. Well, we've got most people answered. So I can tell you, we've got one person that said, not sure how long my answer should be. 4 people said, not sure what to include or leave out of my answer. One person said, I'm not sure what they're looking for in their answer. I don't love talking about myself, said 2 people. I feel a lot of pressure. Nobody said. One person said all of the above. So not necessarily a trick question, but there's no wrong answer to this question. These are all the reasons that are most common for people on why they feel this question is hard. And in general, it's because it's an unstructured question and students aren't sure how to structure their answer. And adults, for that matter, really struggle with this question. So what we're gonna do, because this question is so important for everything you do, we're gonna focus on 3 secrets that we have proven and have researched and tested and used in our own job interviews and seen work well for others on how to answer this question correctly. And we're going to focus more specifically on the interview side, but this applies to, like we said, any of those applications that we talked about in the first poll question. So secret number 1, this is the most common misconception about this, about tell me about yourself. So most people think this question is about me, right? They're asking, tell me about yourself, it's about me. But the problem with that is, if it's really about me and that's all I'm thinking about, I don't really know where to start. I don't know what to include or what not to include. So the right way to think about it, and something that'll help you immediately, is understanding that this question is actually not about you. When a person, especially in a job interview, asks you, tell me about yourself, they don't want to know which hospital you were born at, right? Or what kind of cake you had for your first birthday. They want to know how you're going to help their company become better, right? They're going to want to know how you're going to be a good employee. So by understanding that first, this question actually isn't about you, you automatically narrow down what you should include in that answer, which is one of the biggest problems on why this question is so hard in the first place. And taking that to the next level, these are 3 steps you can use, or 3 questions you can ask yourself to help narrow it down even further on what to include in this answer. So number 1 is understand the context. First things first, right? If I'm in a dating situation, I'm not probably going to be best served to include something that might make me a suitable mate versus something where I'm trying to get a marketing job, right? So automatically you can say, well, on my marketing interview, I'm going to focus on experiences related to marketing, right? Because that's going to help me get the job, versus being an interesting person that's attractive and someone that the other person would want to date, right? So automatically you narrow that down. That can help you by just understanding the context. Second thing, understand what your goal is from this conversation. Are you trying to get a job? Are you trying to get a second meeting with a person that you're networking with? Are you trying to get a first date? It all depends on what your goal is. So understanding that before you start the conversation will help you understand what to include in your answer. And then the third one, I always like to say it's super helpful to just say, if I was in the other person's shoes, if I was the job interviewer, if I was the person evaluating me, whether or not they wanted to date me, what would I want to know? If I was in the other person's shoes, what would I want to know that would help me make a decision that aligns with my goal in number 2? So those are 3 ways to take that it's not about me concept to the next level. And that's really powerful, because once we can narrow down what we want to include, then we just need to organize it. So secret number 2 is to structure your answer. And we have a 3-part structure that we use that's super simple, effective, and it'll help you organize those relevant experiences into a cohesive answer and story that you can use. So the first part of that framework is present. And we're talking about like the present time, present, past, future. And we'll talk about the rest in a second, because that's the structure. But first, focusing on present. This is the shortest part of the answer. You're really just orienting someone as to who you are and where you are right now. So for all 3 of these parts of the framework, I'm going to focus on me being a senior in college, and I want to get a entrepreneurship teaching job at a high school. So for present, all I would need to say is something like, I'm Matthew Moybon. I'm currently a senior at Indiana University studying education and entrepreneurship, and I'm the president of my fraternity. It could be that simple. It may even be a little shorter than that. You just want to orient the person as to who you are and why you're there. The second one, and it's bigger on purpose, is past, because this is where you go back into the experiences, the tangible accomplishments, and the relevant skills you have that you've already built for this job and how it's going to help you at that job. So for that part, for example, after that first present part that I went over, I would go into something like, I'm really excited to be here today because this job combines 2 of my greatest passions, which are education and entrepreneurship. And this goes all the way back to when I was in high school. And I talked a little bit about this at the beginning as an aside, but our dad was really awesome about exposing us to the non-traditional path. And part of that was showing us that entrepreneurship was a career option that most people didn't think was possible. And as soon as we got exposed to it, my brothers and I, we were so excited about it. And so we tried to figure out a way to start it right then. And what we ended up doing was, instead of getting a traditional summer job, we actually started a summer leadership camp for middle school students. We pitched it to our old middle school, developed the curriculum ourselves, and tested it for a summer. We got 14 kids. We absolutely fell in love with it. The next summer, it got adopted by the township, and we had 50 students the second summer. And we just knew that at some point we want to come back to this entrepreneurial idea, but we also realized how much we love teaching and coaching students. And so we continued to work on it and refine it. We actually made some online courses in out of that original curriculum. And that's kind of like a place to stop before you transition into part 3. But hopefully you got some examples of how it's not just general talking about what you've done in your past, but actually using experiences, telling stories, making it super engaging for the person before you transition into part 3, which is the future. And this is really important, where a lot of people miss. This is how your past, what I just described, applies to the job that you want. You're tying it all together for the interviewer to say, this is why I'm going to be a great fit at your company. And it feels like maybe you already said that in the past, but you didn't explicitly say it. So here's where you want to tie it together. So I could say something like, and that's why I'm so excited about this job, because like I said, it combines those two passions for me. I jumped ahead a little bit. I already created a draft curriculum that I think will be great for this, but I'm excited to combine my unique experience with entrepreneurship and education into this role if I was going to get the job. So there's just an example of how you can tie that framework together and make it a cohesive story and organize what you narrowed down to your relevant experiences from point 1. Now, secret number 3 is pretty simple, but it's really important. It's be interesting. Be interesting depending on the situation, whether it is interviewing, networking, dating. You want to be someone that catches the person's eye, that they remember, that sticks in their mind, so that you get the follow-up or the goal that you have in mind for that conversation. And breaking this down, the first one is similar to what we broke down in the first point, the first secret, which is just understanding the context, right? If you're talking about experiences that aren't relevant to the context or what your ultimate goals are, or what that person is looking to hear, then you're going to lose them, right? You're not going to have something that catches their eye, engages them, sticks in their mind, and makes them want to take that next step with you, which is normally the goal in anything professional related that we're trying to accomplish with this answer. This is the kicking off point, but we want to make a powerful first impression. So step 1, again, for this one, is understanding the context. Step 2 is asking yourself, when you're thinking about crafting this answer, what do I myself find interesting? Because if you find it interesting, most likely other people are going to find it interesting. So for me, for example, I always find people interesting with some of these qualities. People that are not afraid to be themselves, people that are really confident, people that have accomplished meaningful things in their work, or who absolutely love their work, or who have passions outside of work that they don't just talk about, but they actually do really cool stuff with and build meaningful skills and experiences, and aren't afraid to try stuff and fail and have really cool stories to share. So because I find that interesting, I try to emulate that in all of my answers, and it tends to work pretty well. But ask yourself, what do you find interesting? And again, most likely those other people will find it interesting. And then the third one is to tell stories. And hopefully you saw how in my past example, in that 3-part structure, by not just saying I have experience in entrepreneurship and I've written a curriculum, but actually going into the story and details about how I evolved my journey and how I came to be here today with that experience, makes it way more interesting. So for example, this one I love because I love guitar, but if I told you that, let's say this is a dating situation where, because guitar may not be as relevant to a finance job or a teaching job, but I could tell you, I learned guitar, I taught myself guitar, and I play all the time, and I've gotten really good, which is fun. Or I could tell you, when I was in high school, automatically like more engaging, right? But when I was in high school, I went to this John Mayer concert, and I had never been to a concert like that before. And seeing him up on stage, I was mesmerized. And I thought, that looks like the most fun thing you could ever do. Write your own songs, be on stage, and play, and have all these fans listening to your music and singing along with the words, something that you've originally created. So I thought, I've got to play guitar. I don't need to play professionally. I got to have a piece of that magic. So I figured out how to. At first, I bought a guitar. Then I self-taught myself. I took some classes in college. I hired a coach, and now I'm really excited. And my goal is to be able to play an open mic show by the end of 2021. So yes, it takes a little longer, but you see how much more interesting and engaging that is by telling a story. So never be afraid to infuse stories into your tell me about yourself answers in any networking or professional settings, or especially in dating situations. So that's breaking down that third be interesting. And then we have a couple last tips for you. So for your answer, a lot of times we get the question of how long should my tell me about yourself answer be? That's sometimes a hard people don't know. Our general rule of thumb is between 90 and 120 seconds, hence the title of this presentation. But between 90 and 120 seconds allows you to go into depth a little bit, tell a few stories if it's relevant, and capture the person's attention, but also not ramble too long and leave them hanging a little bit so they can ask follow-up questions, which is one of the best possible situations you can generate in interviews or in networking situations, is have that person be piqued, have their interest piqued to want to know more, and you not feeling like you have to cover every single thing that you've ever done that's relevant for the job. The second one is don't memorize. You want this to sound really conversational, even in interviews and even in networking situations. You want to come off as someone that's easy to talk to, and that, you know, they can relate to it, and it sounds genuine and authentic and confident. And the only way to do that is step 3, which is practice, get feedback, and practice and get feedback. Don't be afraid to structure it out using like a worksheet that we may have on one of the next slides for you for free that you can use, and then get feedback on it. Practice it out loud, you know, do it in front of the mirror first for yourself. And then don't be afraid to ask people that you trust or that you look up to. Maybe you've heard a great answer before. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback, refine, keep practicing, because again, you're going to use this in so many situations, personally and professionally, that you want to practice getting this answer down and feeling comfortable and not dreading when people ask this question, tell me about yourself. So we'll send out these slides after the presentation, but here specifically is a little cheat sheet you can use that recaps everything we just talked about, the three secrets and those other tips we just went through. And then like we talked about, Joseph will put this in the chat, but we have a worksheet that we use with all of our students and programs when we talk about networking and interviewing, and specifically this tell me about yourself question, that helps walk you through the 3-part framework and allows you to, whether you're preparing for a job interview, scholarship application, anything, frame out your answer based on what's relevant for that specific situation. Remember, understand the context, think about what your goal is, and include relevant things that are going to help you accomplish that goal. And that is the content 15 for your future for how to answer the question, tell me about yourself. And now we would love to answer any questions that you all have. Definitely feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself and you can ask the question. But thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Great. Thanks so much, Matthew. Yeah, we'd love to hear any questions if you got them. Submit them in the chat or unmute and ask. We will, of course, send this information around after the fact as well.
Yeah, even if it's like examples of things we went over that you want to go back through, or something you weren't sure about, or if it's something maybe that we didn't cover that you had a question about, definitely feel free to ask it. Another random tip, if you can withstand this kind of awkward silence, that's another really good skill to have in interviews, presentations. My brother-in-law is an ice cream salesman, really successful, and he talks all the time about how just don't say anything, and you force the other person to talk or say something, give you more information. But I guess to say, like, I'm comfortable with this. It's okay. I understand if there's not questions, but another little aside that can help you in interviews too, to be able to just withstand the silence. All right. Well, if there are no questions, if you have follow-up questions that you think of later, definitely feel free to reach out. We'll send these slides around. We'll send
What's your email?
Oh, email? Joseph can put it in the chat. Feel free to reach out. Thanks, Asia.
Yep, Asia, my email's in the chat if you want to reach out and ask any questions there. We can do some mock interviews on this stuff too. Happy to connect with you directly.
Yeah, I get a lot of probably interviews coming up. I need help with that too.
Oh, awesome. All right, cool. Well, we have some other worksheets and things too that might be helpful for behavioral questions and other things. So happy to share those. Just shoot me an email and we can connect and figure out how we can be helpful.
Are we talking about stress and stuff too?
Talking about what? I'm sorry.
Stress, like that.
Stress.
Talking about, yeah, I thought we was like, that was basically the topic today.
Today was trying to reduce your stress around this question. Next time, we're going to talk more about productivity and some different routines and things you can do to reduce stress further if you're feeling really busy or overwhelmed. So that'll be in November.
I know today I'm feeling overwhelmed. Like today I got class and everything. I'm like, yep.
Yeah. Well, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but the thing I do that always helps when I'm feeling overwhelmed and helps me with my productivity is to just write everything down that you're thinking about or that you have to do and create a really, really big to-do list and just do a brain dump of whatever's on your mind. And if you just feel like you can't figure out or you're feeling overwhelmed, that always helps me because a lot of times it's not as much stress or as many things as you might think you have to do. And as soon as they're on paper, you can start to knock them out. And as soon as they're down there, you can look at them instead of just thinking about how much you have going on. So I would tell you to do that too. And if you want, feel free to email me again. We can reach out or you can reach out and we can talk about that even further.
The other thing, if you can see this, I will schedule time in my calendar to work on very specific things, like down to the minute, making sure nothing overlaps. So I don't know if that would help you, Asia, too, but I think that is really helpful to not just write it down on paper, but also say, like, when am I going to work on this and get it done? And just schedule out your time and take into account all the things you have to do, right? I'm sure you have meetings and class and all that, but intentionally like writing down what you have to do and then when you're going to get it done always helps me when I have a lot to do.
I have a good day too.
Thanks, Asia. You too.
Asia.
Great. Well, anyone who's left, if you got questions, great. Put them in the chat or unmute yourself. But otherwise, next session is Tuesday, November 17th at 3:30 p.m. You'll all get an email calendar invitation from us, but stay tuned for that one. As Joseph mentioned, it's all about productivity and how you can organize yourself to be more efficient throughout your day.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks everybody.
Everyone. Talk soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.